Indie Beacon Radio with host B Alan Bourgeois. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
And welcome to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and I have with me Dr. Dwan Menge. Welcome, Dwan. We appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So you have a collection, a wild collection of stories that I got to learn a little bit about recently. Let's start with, how did you get into writing these books?
Well, it started as an assignment. I have a, we'll talk about where I started this from the beginning. I work with students with severe cognitive delays for over 20 years. While I was getting my credential, an assignment in our class was to write a math book and a board game. So I originally wrote Queen Vernita's Visitors was actually Victoria was one of my students, and all of my students were in the book. And we traveled around the high desert, and we did our skit and then taught the pre-K to first graders about our students. So like almost all teachers, I wanted to publish the book. So I thought, okay, so I named it after Vernita. Queen Vernita was my grandmother. She was an astute businesswoman and a world traveler. And everyone in the book was a child or a member of my family. This is September, and this is my mom, Virginia. And every month has a new friend, and it has 7 facts. So it teaches calendar skills. So the Queen has 12 visitors each year, and they do 7 different activities during that month. And it talks about the seasons. So when this book came out, it was self-published. I started getting awards. I won the first place in the EV Award, which is California Independent Publishers. And I started getting interviews, and they started asking me, well, what's your next book? What are you going to do? And I was like, nothing. That was it. That's what I was doing. So I decided that since I love to travel, that the Queen was going to travel around her kingdom to the different areas and learn about her subjects. So I've just published my 10th book in the series. They run pre-K to 6th grade. I have 2 on Kona, Hawaii. I have 1 on Alaska, 1 on New Orleans, 1 on Baja, California. I took a paddle boat trip up the Snake River. And what else do I have? I just published one. My family and I went to Williams, Arizona, and rode the train from Williams to the Grand Canyon. And then we went on the Polar Express. And I just published that one about 2 months ago. And it's pre-K to first grade, and it's all about Santa Claus and riding on the train and what we visited there. I have 3 more in production right now.
Lots of work going on. And you've won a total of 41 awards, is that right?
Yeah, between the 10 books, this book I think has won over 10 just by itself. I've won the EV. I do a lot of work with Story Monster magazine, which is a wonderful educational magazine out of Tempe, Arizona. I met Linda when I started submitting my books for Story Monster. There's a Story Monster Award, and there's for Purple Dragonfly and what's the other one? There's another Dragonfly one. But all of my books have won these awards, and so I actually write book reviews for the magazine. I just got a big box of books, like 30 books I'm going to write book reviews on, and I read them to my students, and they do book reports. And I also go to a lot of events with them, and it's a wonderful educational magazine. So I've met lots of really neat people on my author journey. I also am on a committee to pick the books for the students with severe and cognitive delays through the United States Board on Books for Young Children. So I've had a lot of activities. And recently, my newest book, Queen Vernita Conquers Volcanic Islands, I submitted it into the Conquering Disabilities with Film Festival. I saw it on Facebook, and I thought I want to try something different, and I just won an award with it, and actually won 2. My book trailer one was a runner-up, and then the series itself won a special award, special recognition award, and I won. And then I entered the Beyond Beyond a Curve out of France Film Festival, and my book trailer was a finalist in that. So that's like a whole new area that I'm beginning to explore. This morning I just finished an interview for their Mega Fest magazine. So I've been very busy, so I'm a little trying to remember what I was doing. But I just finished that interview this morning, and we were going to go and have a big festival in Vegas in July. I was really excited about that, and of course it was canceled, like everything else we've been doing. But next year I'm going to go and get to go on the red carpet and accept my awards. So I'm really excited about that.
Great. So I've got to ask, because you are a special needs teacher, are these books specifically for that, or are they for any child?
No, they're for any child. What I've done is in several of my books, I've included disabilities. Everybody in my book is a real person. So everyone that's included that has a disability is an actual person. So in my books, I've included cerebral palsy, autism, Rett syndrome, visually impaired. I can't think of what else right now because I have 10 books, but and every one of them is a real person. And not all of my books have disabilities, but they're based on the rote format, so it's repetition. This is a great format for children with disabilities or for people who are learning English. My books are used. I have a friend who teaches up in Washington, and he teaches refugees from, I think it's Africa. And so he uses my books to teach them English. And he was just telling me the other day how successful they are learning English by using my stories. So I think that's really wonderful.
Yes, it is. So tell us about the artist. How's all the art created?
When I first started, I used an artist through my publisher. And then I was contacted from France, and they wanted me to kind of change my illustrations a little bit. So I actually met my artist at a book event. I live in a small town, and we have our Young Authors Conference, and I've been the featured author for over 10 years. And I met her there, and she actually takes pictures from my adventures and takes the pictures and replicates them into the illustrations. And I met her there, and she actually only lived a block from me before I moved. But so she, like this one right here, this is the new one I'm doing. It's going to be pre-K. It's almost finished, and it's based on our yearly camping trips to Halama Beach, which is it's up the central coast of California. And it's going to have campfires, and raccoons, and there's an ostrich farm up there that we visited. See, here's the ostriches. And then it's going to have kite flying and sandcastle making. And this was a friend of mine. She lived with me for a little while. She was an OT from Maine, an occupational therapist. And she wanted to go visit Pacific Beach. So we took her down there. This is when we were just starting to be able to go out and about. And that was when the red tide. So I wanted to see the bioluminescent waves, the blue waves. I tried twice, never did. I was always like 30 miles from where they were. But you couldn't stop on the beach. The little kids would come and try to play, and they would come and make them get up. You couldn't stop. You had to keep moving. So my grandson was with us, and he was walking along the water, swimming as we were walking along the beach. And she was walking, and a jellyfish came up, and she was trying to jump over the jellyfish, not step on it. And so now she's the picture in my book. And so she was excited about that. But everything in my book is a real adventure. I make sure I do it before I put it in my book. The one on the islands, we went to the North Shore, and we went out into a cage 10 miles out, and we went swimming with the sharks. And we've been with the turtles and the dolphins. And so they're all filled with our real adventures.
Wonderful. Well, this is a perfect spot for us to stop, let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
The Fire in the Rock by Charles Henderson Norman was named to Kirkus Review's list of the best books of the year in 2016. It is the story of the Exodus as told by Zipporah, Moses' widow, long after the fact. But it is not a conventional Bible story book. It will challenge non-believers, but it will challenge believers as well, with a human perspective on a story that you have never heard.
Available on Amazon as a paperback, ebook, or Audible. Do you send book sales to a company that takes most of your money? Want to earn more money from your book sales? Do you want a bookstore that supports you? Introducing a new bookstore for indie authors and small press, B4R.store. Earn up to 80% of your book sales and learn how to market yourself. B4R.store. Join us for the 6th Annual Authors Marketing Event in Granbury, Texas on July 23rd to the 25th, 2021, where authors share ideas and learn from the professionals over a 2-day weekend. Receive your book marketing certification from the only organization in the world that has been doing it for 5 years, Authors Marketing Guild, a membership-based organization that supports authors from around the world. Learn more at ame.authorsmarketingguild.com. Sponsored by indielector.store, a bookstore that pays authors their fair share.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. We are talking with Dr. Dwan Menge, who has written several children's books, 10 if I'm correct, with 3 more on the way. So let's talk about the 3 more that are on the way. Tell us a little bit about them.
Okay, I'm doing the one, this is pre-K to 1st grade on Halama Beach. And I'm also working on one with a friend of mine. I knew him from high school, and he is an expert on, I'm going to say this wrong, the To'ahonaham Indians in Tucson and the Sonora Desert. And we actually started that book 10 years ago. He lived close to us, and then he moved to Tucson. So I would travel to the Tucson Festival of Books. It was at the university there, and I would go and visit with him, and we started this book 10 years ago. So the one thing that has been really great about what has happened where we had to stay home is I focused on my writing, and that's why I have all these books coming out. So we actually got back to our book and we finished it, which is amazing because we didn't really think we were going to do that. But we had a great time, and he's a wonderful writer, and I'm really looking forward to getting it out there. It's going to have all things about the Indians. There's some things about the missions. There's a camel ride. And then I have a friend that I work with who is from India, and I included her in my book. And so we added some information on the Festival of Lights from her country. And then her illustration is going to have her costumes that they wear when they go to celebrate, their outfits. It's beautiful. I'm really looking forward to that. And then I have another one that I'm going to do on the Grand Canyon. We just went to the Grand Canyon. I think there was 18 of us. And we went bicycle riding and go-kart riding and hiking down the Angels Trail, which I found out was not such a great idea because it's the hardest trail they have. But we did lots of things there, the swimming, and so that's all going to be in the book. There's going to be a lot of geological history on the Grand Canyon, and it's going to be probably 6th grade level. My books run pre-K to 6th grade, so there's something for everyone. Unfortunately, I just sold all my books, so I don't have them all with me. But I have one. My brother is an astronomer at JPL, and he wrote one with me called Queen Vernita Meets Sir Heathy Bean the Astronomer. And he's called Sir Heathy Bean because that's what I called him when he was little. His name is Heath, and I called him Heathy Bean. So that's it. That's who he is in the book. And he wanted to wear bunny slippers and wild hair and be the professor, the wild professor. So that's what he is in the book. But he teaches all about astronomy. And so he's the expert in that field. So I have a couple books that I have co-authors with, and because they have more expertise in what we're talking about.
Great. We hope to be at the Tucson Book Festival. We couldn't this year because of COVID, but we are scheduled to be there next year, providing it happens. So hopefully we can meet with your co-author and you as well and stuff.
Well, that would be great.
So when you're going on these trips, are you purposely going on these trips so that you can write about them, or you just happen to write about them after the fact?
It goes both ways. There are some trips I said, well, this is really neat, or someone will tell me about an area and I'm like, oh, I'd really like to see that. And so I might go with a preconceived idea of what I want to do there. And then I get there and I find out all sorts of other things that are interesting or kind of offbeat, and then I'll write about them. Like the trip we went to Grand Canyon just now. My children set that trip up. And I just kind of went along for the ride, and it's like, wow, this is really going to be a book, and we're actually going to Zion in a couple of weeks. And I am sure I'm going to make a book about that one because I did a lot on the ocean because I really love the ocean. My parents had a sailboat for 25 years. And so that's and I have a friend that I grew up with that moved to Kona, and his wife was from Kona. So I have 2 books on Kona because of them. They're actually, in the first book, they are the main characters. And so I wanted to start, branching out, and that's why we're doing the desert, and I'd like to do some of the red rock. I kind of tend to gravitate more towards the ocean, so I'm trying to move a different direction. We spend a lot of time at Oceanside. If anybody's familiar with California, that's where my parents had a sailboat. So at some point, I am going to write a book on Oceanside. It'll be a pre-K to first grade, and so it'll be more about just what to do when you're at the ocean. But it's both ways. I've traveled quite extensively, and sometimes I intermix. When I was in Tahiti, we called it snoobling. I'm not quite sure what the technical word is for it, but you wear a helmet and you go about 10 feet under the water. So it's kind of in between snorkeling and diving. And my son was 16 and he traveled with me a lot at that time. And we were feeding the fish, and he was surrounded by like hundreds of fish. And that one is in my Queen Vernita Conquers the Volcanic Islands. So it's not about Hawaii specifically. I've got some Swim with the Manta Rays. We did that, the giant manta rays. We did that in Tahiti. So, but I added it in the Hawaii book. So kind of intermix some of the places I've been, but I travel a lot. So it's kind of a mixture of everything. It's whatever I'm doing, whatever I need to write about.
Yeah, and it's great that you're able to travel as much as you did or do. I've been to Tahiti as well, and understand that having those fish around you is really unique and stuff.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I'd love to go back.
Really quite an experience. So
yes, it's like a rainforest under the water.
Yeah. When you're going through, for example, let's use the recent trip to the Grand Canyon, okay? You said you went as, tag along, and then you realized, hey, there's a book here. When you're going through the process of the adventure and you're actually then writing the book, are you finding yourself having to go back to do some research, whether it be online or in person, or
oh yes,
any of that plays into it?
Oh yeah. I do the initial like what will fit into the book and what grade level, because the grade level matters about the content. So I couldn't, like when I did the train ride, originally it was because we rode the train to the Grand Canyon, it was going to be about the Grand Canyon, but then I decided I needed it to be pre-K. I needed more pre-K books for my events. And so I left it more about Santa Claus and something like that. So now I can write a book about the Grand Canyon. And so like we have a picture of us walking down the Angels Camp, and you can see the layers of the earth in the picture. So she'll take that picture, make it into the illustration, and then I will do a lot more research on exactly what it is that we're looking at. And on the way home, we stopped at the Grand Canyon Caverns, and I found out you can spend the night there. So that's my next trip, to spend the night, and that's going to be in the book. And I want to put the skywalk in there. They built the skywalk around. We didn't go there, and I'm not going to get on it, but I'm going to go and learn about it, and maybe a step or two, I'm not sure. I'm afraid of heights, so I'm not really sure how much of that I'm going to do, but I would like to put that in the book. So it's just learning and seeing what's there. And, like my kids took their bikes, so they rode their bikes along the rim of the canyon. So I'm going to put bicycle riding in there and what they saw. And they were actually able to see us and took the picture. And we stayed at a campground, and so there was go-karts. So there will be go-karts in there because that interests the kids too. If you just have a book that's just about factual information about an area, you might lose them. They're not going to be interested. But if you're involving them in it, look, you can go and there's go-karts. You can ride your bicycle on the rim. You can hike. We went swimming. They're more interested. And when I do a lot of the events in Tucson, I have a book on the coastline of California, and I actually sold a lot of books because people were coming here to go on road trips up the coast. So they bought the book so that they could read about it as they were going up the coast. So I'm hoping that helps people to learn about where they're going.
Great. We have just about a minute left of this segment. I want to ask a question. Clearly, it sounds like some of your books will take longer than others to write and stuff. But on average, how long does it take you to do a book?
Well, for me, writing it itself, sitting down and writing it, it takes about a week or two because they all follow the same format and I have the ideas by then. The illustrations are what takes the longest, and that depends on my illustrator. Sometimes she can get me a book in a month, and sometimes it takes a year. It just matters what's going on in her life and how much we're doing and what ideas we have. So it depends. It depends on me too. I teach full time. I'm also a lecturer at a university. I spend a lot of time going to Sacramento and working on the standardized test, advocating for our students, and I have a family. So I have a really busy life, and like I was saying, at this point when we ended up all my events got canceled, and so I just stopped. And so I'm like, oh, now I'm going to write. So I've written, I've got 4, and I'm trying to get 2 more going too. So because when I start going again, I'll be busy and I probably won't have time, to write. So.
Okay. Well, this is a perfect spot to stop and let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be back in just a moment.
World War II, the Holocaust and a mysterious package arrives in New York from Germany 40 years after the war, involving 3 families across the oceans. Mystery, intrigue, and correcting the most heinous of wrongs. This is just part of the story Michael Newman tells in his book, Between These Walls. Available in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or at indielector.store. Buy it today and enjoy this thriller of a novel. Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and we are talking with Dr. Dwan Menge, which, by the way, my mother's name was Dawn. So welcome back.
Name now.
First off, you've got all these books available. So where can people find them?
I have a website, drdonmenge.com. I also have a Facebook, DawnMenge1. I have an Instagram, and I have a Twitter. Also my publisher, Rushmore Press, you can contact them. If you would like an author signed copy, just contact me. You can email me through my website, or you can contact me on social media, and I'll be glad to send you an author signed copy, and whatever you'd like. Okay. And I do a lot of events, so if you have a classroom you need visited or a school, I am willing to do that.
Especially now with Zoom and stuff like that, because of COVID.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do you get messages from people about story ideas?
No, I've never have.
No?
Never had anybody say, I want you to, oh, that's not true. Yes, I have. I had somebody wanted me to write a book on Queen riding in a race car. And I wasn't really interested in that. But otherwise, I have, when I first started, I had a lot of people asking me to write a book on specifically disabilities. And it's kind of in the back of my head. I would like to do it, but I don't want to do a book like just about disabilities. As a teacher, I've gotten my students, I had the same students all through elementary, all the way, our students stayed till they're 22. So we did a lot of things. They went swimming with the dolphins at SeaWorld. They had a snow ski program. They worked in the community. So I would like to do a book kind of focused on their abilities and what we did. So I haven't quite formulated that and how I want to do that, but I'm sure that will be a book at some point.
Well, you mentioned that you do address those issues in your books. So I'm sure, through that process, people are learning about what that disability is or how to work with people who have those issues.
Right. Well, like in my Queen Reader Conquers, I have Connor. He was a student of mine and he was autistic. So the Queen's learning how to use his communication device. So it's more of an informative, Connor's teaching her. What I'd like to do is write a book on, like, my students working, they worked in the community, they worked in the businesses. I would like to do more of that way, not informing them about the disability itself, but informing them that the person with a disability is still out in the community. They're still working and skiing and going swimming with the dolphins, and they're still with their families. That kind of direction. I just haven't quite figured out what I want to do yet.
Well, I always ask this of our guests and stuff. So words of advisement for anybody who's interested in doing what you do or writing in general. Do you have anything?
I would suggest that you join the organizations. I joined the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. That was the best thing I ever did. Go to their conferences, meet people. You meet New York Times bestselling authors. You meet people who've been working on their books for 10, 12 years and just haven't gone out there and published it. But everybody is so nice, and they're just filled with information, and they all treat you with respect. And they will just help you. And like I said, I joined the United States Board on Books. I do a lot of stuff with Story Monster magazine. They're very professional. Just be careful who you're dealing with and what you're doing, and don't give up. It's easy to get discouraged. Don't let someone's negativity, if someone happens to tell you things that aren't very nice, you know what? It's one person's opinion. There's a million other people out in that world, and there's always someone that needs to hear what you're saying. One time I went to an event at an elementary school, and my brother was talking because it was the third graders, and he was introducing me, and he just happened to mention that I was a teacher, and a little boy just starts talking about his sister. His sister had just passed away, and she was in one of our classes. So we let him talk, and then we gave him a set of our books, but the teachers told us that this had happened just a few weeks earlier, and he hadn't spoken until that moment. And so that was an opportunity for him to kind of heal. But you just don't know when you're out there doing what you're doing. You don't know who you're affecting. You're out there with your message, but you don't know what someone's getting from it. So you have to be mindful of that. That's my biggest thing.
And that's a perfect place for us to stop. I want to thank you very much for being with us on the show. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with the host, B Alan Bourgeois. Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B Alan Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B Alan Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord of Ukraine.